Hi, I'm Margot Rossi. I live in North Carolina. I have a practice in Asian medicine, focusing on lifestyle medicine, mindfulness, and movement, particularly yoga and Taoyin.
And I'm Nick Pohl. I live in London, and my background is in Japanese hands-on healing arts, Zen Shiatsu and Seiki. And I teach courses in clean language and what I call body-friendly language. That is the kind of language that helps people to connect with their somatic intelligence and the healing resources that they find there. And what we're talking about today and inviting you to have a short experience of is this idea that the language you use with your patients can be as powerful a way of influencing their chi as anything you might be doing with your needles or your hands.
So, we'd like to share a story to illustrate that. A patient came to see me with a tight neck, which had developed over the past few months. I started by asking him if it was okay to settle himself in his chair and just to feel his way into the tightness. Then I asked him where exactly he felt it, and his finger drew a line down the left side of his neck along the pathway of the gallbladder channel. So next I asked, and is there anything else about this tightness?
And he paused and moved his head slightly side to side. And then he said, "It's like it won't let go."
And I don't need to know what that means for him. I just listened to the words and offered that back with the same anything else question. And is there anything else about that tightness in your neck that won't let go?
And there's another pause. And then he says, "This is going to sound weird, but I get this image of an old-fashioned hunting trap that's snapped tight shut. And I'm in it."
And is there anything else about that old-fashioned hunting trap that's snapped tight shut and you're in it?
And after a moment, he says, "But it's like it's got me. I'm helpless."
For a few seconds, it was so quiet in the room. It's as if you could hear a needle drop. He wraps his fingers around his neck. His eyes are closed. His lips slightly pressed together. I don't ask anything. I just wait, as present as I can be.
And then he says, "I don't know where this is coming from, but it's like I'm in these woods and the trap snaps shut on me, and all I can do is lie here on the ground, on the earth with the leaves, and there's trees all around me."
So I ask, and when all you can do is lie on the ground with the leaves and the trees all around you, then what happens? There's a long pause. Then gradually his whole left side starts to begin to lengthen and relax.
And then he puts his hand on his lower ribs and he notices, "I'm breathing much deeper now."
And I haven't used any needles or even listened to his pulses yet, but already something has clearly shifted in his body and his chi. So I ask if that would be a good place to begin a treatment. As I put the needles into certain points, more images come to him. When we finish, I ask him what I always ask at the end of a session. And what do you know now about all that?
And he brings himself back from that sort of free-floating state of awareness that patients are often in during the treatment. And then he says, "I guess I have a choice. That the trap can stay snapped shut. I can just feel that tightness in my neck, or I can relax into the earth and breathe deeper, and then the tightness in my neck just disappears."
This episode is brought to you by Jane, the clinic management software that honestly just makes running a practice easier. Let's dive into something that's never easy, but sometimes necessary: raising your fees. It can feel awkward, right? But here's a tip that can really help. Consider offering flexibility to your patients as you introduce the change. When patients face new fees, it's natural for them to feel uncertain or concerned. That's where flexibility can really make a difference. Offering options like a phased increase, suggesting a payment plan, or even taking a moment to talk things through can help to ease the transition. These thoughtful gestures show your patients that you're listening and care about them, which strengthens the trust you've worked so hard to build. If you're looking for more ideas on how to navigate these kinds of changes, head to frontdesk.jane.app and check out the article, How to Tell Clients You're Raising Your Fees. One last thing, if you're ready to give Jane a try, you can use the code QAJ1.2 for a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account.
So clearly in that example, getting grounded with the leaves and the trees and letting go was a resource for him, one that he was able to discover for himself.
And of course, you may be very familiar with that kind of language, those kind of questions from training workshops, guided meditations. What we're talking about here is feeling confident enough to use those questions with your patients in the clinic, using their exact words, repeating those words back in a simple, is there anything else kind of question, and getting curious about the words they use without bringing any of your own interpretation to them.
Yeah, and maybe these kinds of questions sound familiar from the 10 questions, but the intention is different. We're not asking as a way of formulating a diagnosis or making a treatment plan, but as a way to help the patient connect with their experience.
And it's important to remember that language doesn't flow easily between the verbal mind and the feeling body. What helps that kind of communication is to be in an embodied state.
The important thing is that to develop this skill of helping people to connect with their body, you need to connect with your own body, your own felt sense of being with this particular patient. For example, if you tune in for a moment, when you're feeling someone's pulse or palpating their hara, what is your posture like? What's your breathing like? What's your embodied sense of yourself?
And whatever you're noticing about that, we'd like to invite you to take that into a little embodied practice now.
Yeah, so please, if you would, come to a comfortable seated position on a chair or on the floor. You can notice the earth is below you, and you may become aware of a feeling of contact or pressure from the ground. Maybe that's at your feet, maybe on your seat. You can also notice that you're breathing, and you might also notice that there's an outside and an inside. And notice if there's anything drawing your attention, a physical sensation or a particular place in your body.
And maybe something draws your attention, maybe not. If there's nothing particularly drawing your attention, then just stay with something that is obvious, like the feeling in the soles of your feet or the palms of your hands, just noticing what it's like there. Taking your time, being in that open, non-judgmental frame of mind.
And whatever sensation it is that's drawing your attention, whereabouts is that sensation?
And what kind of sensation might that be?
Perhaps there's a tingle or a vibration, maybe an ache or a softness.
Just noticing whatever comes and then asking, is there anything else about that sensation?
And does that sensation have a size or a shape?
Or a color? Or a sound?
And that sensation is like what? Just taking your time to notice if an image or any kind of idea at all surfaces.
And if you get an answer to any of those questions, when you're ready, just asking yourself one more question. What do you know now about all of that?
Having a thriving, profitable practice is one of the most healing things you can do as a healthcare practitioner, because a robust business is the ultimate expression of vital chi. And that's the heart of our medicine. I'm Julie Bairdontlock, and I help practitioners grow nourishing, profitable, authentic businesses that embody the generative cycle of Chinese medicine. This isn't about all yang all the time. It's about expanding your own internal capacity, growing collaborative relationships with your patients for ethical patient retention, and marketing is an extension of this medicine, not a necessary evil. You already know that everything is connected in your patients' lives and bodies. The same is true for your business. When we align your systems, your schedule, your pricing, and your offerings with you, we create flow, which means more spaciousness, more impact, and more joy. When you are in the flow, fully resourced in terms of chi, time, and money, your business becomes a source of healing, not just for your patients, but for you. Let's grow something rooted, radiant, and real. Visit lifeflowconsulting.com to learn more.
So, gently, whatever you've got from your practice, once again, to feel your contact with the earth, noticing that you're breathing, and letting your attention remain on the inside, and also becoming aware of the outside.
And whatever came up for you, maybe it wasn't much at all. Maybe it was just some kind of clue or a hint. Or maybe it was quite a clear or powerful image or idea. Maybe you got a sense of how language can help us know more about what you're experiencing in the body in the moment.
And when you apply this working in the clinic, here's another example. The other day, I was working with a patient with neuropathy in his leg. And when I put the needle into a certain point, he said, ow. And instead of leaving it at that or doing something to the needle, I asked, and what kind of ow is that? He responded, it's as if my leg is coming back to life and it's quite uncomfortable. And when I repeated that back to him, what was important for him was to know that his leg could come back to life.
And notice that coming back to life is a metaphor, and metaphor is a basic channel of communication between mind and body. A patient might say about their joint, it feels rusty, or about their low mood, it's like I'm in a mist. And we just take those words literally and offer them back with that anything else question. Is there anything else about that rusty joint? Is there anything else about that mist? And the most important thing that does is it allows the person to feel listened to, usually in a much deeper way than they're used to, and to listen to themselves in a new way.
The second important thing is that because you're only repeating back their exact words, you're staying out of your patient's space with your agenda or your own judgments. And a lot of those unconscious presuppositions that we tend to bring in to the clinic. Instead, you're inviting a clarity, which in itself has a certain alchemy to it.
Yeah, and the third thing you're doing is trusting your patient's inner wisdom. And that idea, of course, is common to many healing arts. But to tell you the truth, it wasn't until I learned clean language that I discovered how liberating it really is. It frees you as a practitioner from thinking that you have to know all the answers. For me, it opens me up to a kind of genuine sense of no mind or empty mind or clean mind, you could call it, a clean attitude that you bring into that space that you share with the patient.
Yeah, and because of the nature of clean questions, this is a trauma-sensitive way to work because it allows the patient to be in control of their process, that they can take charge of what happens.
And it also works beautifully in teaching any kind of movement practice. Margot, you were telling me about using clean questions in your yoga class yesterday. How did that go?
Yeah, we had an extraordinary class yesterday. In fact, it left my usually very eager to share their experience or ask questions. It left my students speechless because we use clean questions to help explore the low back and the perineum. And it really brought them into a very deep space inside themselves and was quite a revelation for many of them, what they discovered there. So we hoped you enjoyed this little foray into the power of language and how it can help you build rapport and trust in your practice. And it can help your patients connect more deeply with themselves.
And of course, we'd love to see you in any of the courses and classes that we teach online. So thanks very much to Michael and Qiaological for offering this. And thanks very much to you for listening.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, here we are at the end of this episode. If you've listened up to this point, you're either a rabid fan of Qiaological or the forward button on your podcast player stopped working. If you are indeed a fan of the podcast, you can help us to bring new episodes to our community of practitioners by supporting us with a membership or a one-time contribution. Details, of course, are on the website. That's it for today, friends. Join us again next Tuesday for another thoughtful episode of Qiaological.